passe. Super, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe.
Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! Vi i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone, here we are, the Uninformed Handball Hour, taking over Twitch once again. The first time we've all been in the same room since November? Oh no, in December. We were in Christmas, we were all together, but for the podcast was November, right? The end of the Euro.
True. Good to see you again. Especially you. It's been a long time nice to touch you
hello,
again.
sir.
Hello,
How are you doing?
For me, everyone just sees me. You know, I'm not special.
That's because Chris just has
I just go around, no life.
no barrier to travel in his life.
No.
Like 2 weeks ago, there's the women's EHF Final Four in Budapest. Travels there. Then this weekend is Cologne, of course, the big men's Final Four. And in between the 2 weeks, Brian made the pretty good decision of, you know what, I'm going to relax a little bit. I'm going to take my time, chill out, while Chris traveled halfway around the world to participate in an American handball tournament with me. So that I do appreciate that, but it does speak to Chris's mild insanity.
Mild insanity. Yes.
The lack of a girlfriend.
That's it.
That's the beauty of it.
That's right, ladies. I'm still available. All right, men. Look, here we are now. And anyone watching as well, live on Twitch, do send us your questions. You know, we want to hear from you. We want to get your opinions, but also ask us to talk about things. We have an hour and a half or so, which generally isn't enough for these kind of things. But let's see as we go through the Truck Scout 24 EHF Final Four 2023. All the numbers.
That's a lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers, lads.
I think everybody's stressed about that a bit.
Yeah.
And I say you are dreaming about that line.
I can't wait.
And if you get it wrong, you need to commit now to doing something on the Twitch show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
If you get it wrong,
If I go like Truck Scout 25 or 23 or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Calling
say
it the 2024
Exactly.
version of it. What do you want me to? What's my
What are we going
forfeit?
to do? Something entertaining.
anyway, chat. Maybe
Yeah, maybe chat. Chat
The
will tell
chat.
us.
Anyone on
What's
the
my
chat
forfeit?
that wants to give a forfeit for Chris if he gets the name of the official sponsor wrong, which is a complicated thing.
Yeah. Anyway, for the rest of this, we'll call it the EHF Final Four or the Final Four. Or Cologne.
sounds good.
All right, because
Sounds
we've said the sponsor once, and generally we're not really we don't really go with that flow. We just call it what it is.
We are independent.
Yeah, we're independent, and we are going to do a similar thing to what we did for Budapest for the EHF Final Four women, which I think worked really nicely. Looking at the stories, the strengths, and the Achilles weaknesses of each of the four teams. We also have, for those of you who listen to this afterwards, so a little bit of a teaser. If you're watching live now, you also have to listen to the podcast afterwards, because I had the chance to speak to Christian O'Sullivan, the captain of Magdeburg, and to, who else did I speak to? Luke Steins. Luke Steins from PSG. Earlier today at the media call, so we'll put that in the middle of the podcast. So, even if you're watching with us for the next hour and a half, you also have to download the audio.
How was the atmosphere in the media call? Generally, it feels relaxed.
Yes, it was very chill, and I think a bit like last year, because the weather was beautiful. Pretty much all of it took place outside, so under the shade of the big umbrellas and the trees. And it means it feels a little less hectic than like in Budapest. It was pretty intense because everyone is packed into one or two rooms. Whereas here it's out in the garden of the Radisson, and it makes for like a quite nice atmosphere. And, I was speaking to two players who basically were experiencing this for the first time. So even Luke Steins, he's been here before, but it was in 2021 where they didn't have a full event, right? It was still a little bit COVID protected. And So he's like, yeah, I don't really know what to expect. You're the first person I'm talking to. It's like, so on his way out, everyone is busy with the Magdeburg players. So I was like, I'm going to position myself very tactically here and be the first one to grab Luke. And
You have to hold the microphone kind of down here. Oh, sorry, Luke. I'm joking. Luke, I love you. I love you. You're my favorite player.
I did not. Just a normal height difference, you know.
Yeah, you do have to realize that Luke Steins looks tiny compared to real handball,
Huge handball players.
giant players.
Yeah,
when he's standing beside Christopans, he looks tiny, but he's actually just
there's
an
only
average
there's only
sized
like
man.
10 there's only like 10 centimeters.
From Christopans to Chris.
It looks quite normal.
Still bigger than him though. Let's not forget that.
Let's not get carried away here.
So pretty chilled, I would say. I was only there for the first two teams, then I came over here to do the show. You were in a different place though. I didn't see you.
Yeah, I was upstairs with like two players from each team doing kind of social media videos. So we were hidden up in a faraway room doing some funny bits with various players. And Kielce were hands
was
down.
the funniest?
Kielce, hands down. Dylan Nahi and Daniel Dushabayev were hilarious together. It was like a comedy duo. It really honestly was one of the funniest things I've ever been a part of.
Danny Dushabayev.
I feel Dylan Nahi, I can see that character in him.
Dylan Nahi is so competitive. We did this bit of a quiz over and back, and he was so competitive, and he forced Daniel Dushabayev to put the medal on him at the end when he won. It was very good. And I didn't expect it from him. I thought he would be a bit distant, kind of a bit cool about it, but he actually was hilarious.
I figured Danny Dushabayev is the kind of guy who is like a great, proper younger brother, like enthusiastic, and will just like, he'll take a beating, you know? He'll be like, just for the fun of everything.
You know Danny Dushabayev and the Dushabayevs a little bit. When we asked him who his favourite player was, who do you think he said?
Danny.
Yeah.
He said his brother.
Yes.
Oh
Favorite coach?
His
dad.
Yeah, it's just like, you know this stuff. Like, you know all this stuff. You could just predict it.
So funny. That's cute though, to be fair, isn't it? That's nice.
Favorite female player? I thought, does he have a sister? He's going to say that now, but I couldn't remember if he had a sister or not. I don't know. Does he have a sister?
I don't know.
I was expecting him just to
Who did
bang
he
out.
say?
He said Anita Gurbis, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
That's an interesting one. Okay, very good.
Yeah, Anita Gurbis got a good few shout-outs on the women's side. Nora Mork, obviously, as well. Stina Oftedal. They were probably the three. But Biana Popovic as well.
Yeah.
Had a few. They were probably the four top ones that people mentioned.
Nice of the good question for the male players to get their brains thinking, because it's the kind of question you can almost assume that the women's players will have someone, but sometimes men's players are not so tuned in to what's happening in the wider handball world. So some good questions or good answers there. So Kielce were the
best
informed boys in that regard.
Yeah, definitely the most entertaining. Yeah, we're definitely pushing my microphones to the limit in terms of the amount of shouting they were doing afterwards. But no, it was very entertaining stuff.
Nice.
So where are we going to start, boys?
Let's start with the first semi-final.
But so we'll the format. Just to be clear, we're going going to go through each team.
Yeah.
We'll have the storyline for each team.
Yeah.
What's the biggest story? We have biggest strength and Achilles heel. And I mentioned earlier it was quite difficult to find an Achilles heel in these teams. They're all so damn good.
I have to say, I'm really. We have a huge crew here, right? But they seem so confident in our ability to not burn down the studio that I think there's one person left, this is generally Clemence's approach as our producer here. He's just like, the lads are on. I'm going out.
Time for a break.
So thank you to Martin, it is Martin over there in the dark, right? Yeah, Martin in the dark, who's going to be here just in case things do burn down. And so our first semi-final, Magdeburg, Barca. Let's go for Barca first. What is the storyline for you guys? Who wants to go?
I think the storyline has to be, can they pull off the three-peat? I mean, we saw the three-peat in the women's side just a few weeks ago. It kind of feels inevitable that it's going to happen again here. I don't know about you. It's a very, very similar feeling going into this weekend as it was going into Budapest with Vipers. And would that be a bit boring? I don't know. Maybe, but two three-peats in a row.
That was my storyline as well. And it is interesting, the parallel with Vipers, because the talk isn't really about Barca because they're just so good. And they're just... Everyone kind of knows that they're going to be there or thereabouts. And almost people are probably hoping that they don't win. Maybe with the Vipers, they were a little bit more under the radar. People kind of forgot that they're 2-time champions and became 3, and it was all about the other teams. But again, I have this same feeling that, of the discussions we're going to have over the next 3 days, we might talk about the other teams a lot more because it's kind of a bit of excitement. There's something new. We want a challenger. But with Barca, it's like same old incredible Barcelona.
I mean,
better.
In years gone past, though, we would always say don't talk about Barca until the Final Four. And it feels like now we get to the Final Four and we still don't want to talk about them.
We don't talk about Barca until they lift the
final
trophy.
and there's 10 minutes left and then we start talking about Barca. Because they are so good, like you said, Alex. It's just they do it so well and they just play the Champions League better than any other team.
But last year, it was surprising a little bit that they won because it was a new coach. It was Carlos Ortega coming in. He needed to revamp the team a little bit. He did that. That was super impressive. Again, they won by the narrowest of margins, right, in that penalty shootout. Like, they were this close away from losing it. This time, the squad is even better. Think about the players they've brought in. So Hampus Vanna out on the left wing. So now they have an absolute, like a machine for a left wing. They've brought Emil Nielsen in, like, to make that goalkeeper duo. That was maybe a weakness they had last time because there was an over-reliance on Gonzalo. Not this time. And an amazing defender in Jonathan Karlsberg, who's also like super clocked in when it comes to playing an attack. So, yeah, the squad in general has improved. They've only drawn one game all season. I said here from my story, the machine's strong as ever. No, it's stronger than ever. Might be the last time, though. That's the storyline for me. It could be the last time that this team is as strong as it's going to be because there's changes with the budget being reduced probably next season. Still some uncertainty about players like Sindrich. Will he be there next season? Still has a contract, but who knows? And that for me is like, it's kind of a little bit of an end of an era.
Someone said today to me that this could be Lucas Sindrich's last Final Four. And I didn't think about that, but it could be depending where he goes next year. And
that's just saying that he's going to go to Melsung and never appear in top-level handball again.
The end of his career.
Would you be surprised?
The golden parachute. Lifting the golden trophy to taking the golden parachute.
No, I wouldn't say that about Lucas Sindrich. I think he would, he's good enough to elevate any other team to actually...
Even Melsungen?
Even potentially not Melsungen, but
how do we always end up with bullshit like shitting on Melsungen to these things?
It's so fun.
I know,
so fun.
I know. Okay,
but yeah, so it does feel like an end of an era. But I think last year we were also kind of talking about this uncertainty with the new coach. Now, how do you feel about the pressure on Carlos Ortega in this moment? What last year it seemed like. He had this momentous challenge in front of him. He had to replicate the greatest team of all time previously and did it in emphatic fashion. How do you think the pressure is on Barcelona, especially now that there's also, this expectation that the budget's going to go down next year? It's not like it's going to keep rising and rising. Do you feel that will have any impact on
I don't think they'd be too worried about that. Like, also because the tag of the team that blows the semi-finals that they had a couple of years ago is gone, because they're not a team that blows the big leads. They're just a dominant team. The way they've set themselves up this year as well, and maybe we can look at that in more detail here. We need to, with any Final Four preview, need to look at the amazing stats that Julian Rux has done, and I had a look at a few of them before. And this is what really stood out for me about Barca, because not only do they give up the fewest turnovers in attack, 7.5 per 50 attacks, but they force the most on opposition, 10.2 per 50 attacks. And that, of course, when you're not giving up the ball in attack and turning the ball over a lot in defence, what does that mean? Fast breaks.
Hampus Vanna
and Alex Gomez on fast breaks.
Can we just have a brief mention of Alex? Okay, continue.
Most possession, and with that, fast break goals and basically attacking more than anyone else. So that is, for a team like that, a really scary combination of statistics. So Alex Gomez.
Well, actually, we'll leave Alex Gomez for a little bit later.
Okay.
Because he's just tease it like that and then just not. I thought you were going to go now into the strengths. Like, I thought
maybe.
The thing is,
he's the weakness.
The strength is actually built on the point that Chris is making. And it is their defense. As you said, you talked about the turnovers, but particularly their defensive efficiency is, again, referencing Julian Rux's numbers per 50 possessions, is streaks ahead of every other team in the competition. And that center block between Fabregas and Thiago Petras might just be one of the best defensive partnerships we've ever seen. This equality in both of them. There's not just like one defensive specialist. It's really two guys who are probably the top two defenders in the world. And they're right there in the middle. They're both, and that leads into what you said, because they're so aggressive, they're so smart. They're this evolved 6-0 defense where there's a lot of offensive play, there's interceptions, they're not just standing up and trying to block something. And that defense is, again, something that probably flies under the radar with Barca. You don't think of them as a defensive team because they get all these fast breaks. Yeah. But how do they get these fast breaks? They're fantastic defense.
Yes, and you include Alex Gomez in that as well, his intercepting ability. And Carlos Bagard, who I mentioned already, like if he's the guy, because of the amazing centre block, that he has to go number 2 in defence, that's still what a player to have, because he is a player he's Sweden's best defender. So yeah, overall, I mean, that was for me the strength as well, scoring easy goals, the turnovers and the fast breaks.
I had a kind of a bit of a bigger picture for the strength here, and I thought it comes back to what you said a little bit earlier about, is there extra pressure on Carlos Ortega this weekend? And I'd say probably no, not at all. I feel like he's going into this because he did what he did last year, and because we know what's coming. I think they can almost play with ease to a certain extent. And I don't see them under extra pressure. So I think momentum coming into this, having won 2 already, is a huge factor. And they do have that kind of fear aspect in them.
Opposition
fear. Actually. Yeah, they're not like scared themselves. But yeah, they put fear into other teams.
We're so good. It's just so scary.
Also, what you said there as well, when you can crush other teams with your defense and then get such easy goals on a weekend like this as well, you can really pull away, and I think it's hugely important. So I think momentum generally was one of their biggest strengths.
And now I'll go to Alex Gomez, because I wanted to just confirm the exact stats, because they are just ridiculous.
I'll put my mic down.
Alex, you got a coffee over there. Where's my coffee?
I asked for one. Again, I'm the godfather of Twitch, so I get priority.
No accreditation needed.
No accreditation needed. But Alex Gomez, it averages 7.25 goals in Final Four matches. That is far and ahead above any other player in history. And he's just 10 goals away from being the highest scorer in the men's EHF Final Four. He's on 58. He's done that in 4 championships. He needs 10 more to beat to beat Mikkel Hansen, who took 7 to do it. And
4. This is his 4th one.
This is his 5th one.
A 5th one.
So
okay.
in 4 he has 58 goals.
Yeah.
Mikkel Hansen has 68 in 7.
Wow.
So Alex Gomez, kind of like Henny Reistad, on just smashing any record that exists in the Final Four.
Super impressive.
Well, here's a question to both of you now. Let's just say you've never watched handball, and you're trying to explain to someone what Alexis Gomez does really well. Why is he so successful at Final Fours, and what is he doing? Because it feels like to me his energy and his timing are just something to behold. But like, I'll open up the floor to you guys.
I would say, like, he is clutch in a way, but I also remember times here in Cologne where he's had some rough patches, which is remarkable when you think of like the amount of goals he's scored. There have been times where he's missed 2 or 3 or missed the penalty, which you expect him to score all of them. But the fact that he does that, but then he just keeps going. He is a mentality monster, I would say. That is the thing. Ever since he's taken that position, as long as he can, he will play 60 minutes for the team. He will run all day long. He will get the easy fast break goals, not just because he's fast like Vanna, but also because he steals the ball himself and he scores the penalty. So that's like, he will never stop. He'll never shy away from taking on the shot. And I think that is an important thing, particularly in the Final Four, where, moments can get to people and maybe they don't want to be as brave as they should be, but he seems like a guy who's always so brave.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I always try. It's difficult to understand the different levels of wingers at the highest level. Because technically, every winger at this Final Four, even at the top 10 clubs, are probably relatively similar in terms of their technical ability. They're all fantastic. They're all really fast. They can all jump. But somehow, some wingers just score twice as much as others. Sometimes that comes down to the style of the team, the style of the attack, but it comes down to that bravery, to that never say die attitude, and to taking every single scrap of opportunity that comes your way. And Alex Chalmers just does that across every level. I think, Chris, you've kind of said it very well, because it's not just the Timur Debirov who takes half a meter of space and he's like, I got this. Yeah. And most of the time he does get it. It's not just in that specific moment. It's in transition, it's in defense, it's everywhere.
Satisfied?
Very satisfied. Okay, yeah, very satisfied. For me, I've obviously watched him and filmed him in many games over in various Final Fours and for Spain as well. And I come back to what you said a little bit as well. It seems like sometimes he's, and I mean this in a positive way, he's a bit switched off to the big day almost. He's always a bit able to turn off his head in the big moments like that and kind of just focus on playing handball. Yeah. And you do notice that when they're warming up and before they come out, he is just super relaxed. And for the way he plays with all that bravery, diving on every ball, going on every fast break, you almost need to be successful.
You might not want him being playing in centre back when he has to drive a whole team, but there's a guy in the wing who just runs and guns and shoots and scores. That'll do.
That'll do.
So, do they have a weakness?
Yeah, Achilles heel. This was a struggle for me, and it's one of those shitey journalist ones. So I'm sorry in advance. It's such a non-handball player thing to say, but they've yet to have a really intense match this season.
That's the only thing I could find as well.
They've gone through this incredible unbeaten run. They've cruised in the Champions League, and you might say
except for that match against Celje.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point. We again, but that's the game against Celje, where they could have been losing by 15 and they would have come back and won it. The draw with Kiel, another tight game, but we saw what happened when we put too much emphasis on the group phase, then going into the knockout rounds. Remember when we were predicting the playoff round, quarterfinal, we were inferring that some games could go a certain way based on it, but then we see, in the knockout round, actually, none of that mattered. All the form from the group phase didn't really matter. So I think Barca were able to kind of cruise that. Asbal, again, maybe tougher than last season's, but not really. And they lost the game at the beginning of the season in the Super Globe against Magdeburg, which I think is important for Magdeburg, maybe not so important for Barca because it was the Super Globe. All in all, that could maybe could come back to bite them in the arse. The fact that they had to go to Toulouse to play a warm-up match for this, because they finished the Spanish domestic season 2 weeks ago, so they went to play Phoenix Toulouse, and I mean that's not Magdeburg. So they could come in a little bit undercooked, potentially.
I don't know. I feel like we're saying this. This every Final Four about this whole battle.
You have to
I know.
straws,
this whole battle hardened thing versus we talk about it every time, and it never seems to bear any fruit at all.
But it'll be a good thing to go back to if they lose tomorrow.
Yeah. The only thing I was talking to some, because when Barcelona arrived, by the way, they were very delayed, and I was meant to stay up for their arrival, and they were arriving at 11:30, then it was 12:30, and then it was 1, and then they arrived at actually 3 in the morning, and there was guys from Catalonia TV who had to stay up there, and they were just sitting outside with coffees, just waiting up to do a live report of them arriving, and they're just waiting there with me. And the only thing they were saying is negative is just they had a gut feeling that maybe they had their foot off the pedal 5% this year compared to last year. And if you're going on how close it was last year, that 5% could change things. And we know how close it is at the Final Four. That's probably the only thing that maybe I could see, that they've won 2 already. And that's their only weakness, maybe that they're not maybe that as quite hungry as they were other years. But it's really, really hard to see anything else in there in terms of weaknesses.
Yeah, we're all talking about these kind of mental barriers. There's no tactical, technical player barriers for Barcelona. It's about their mentality and how they approach this, which is, I think it's a relevant question to ask. Because again, Final Four is when you get punched in the face, and it's how you react to that. This is a team that's been punched in the face a few times and has always reacted.
Yeah.
But my Achilles heel is Magdeburg. So Barcelona's Achilles heel is Magdeburg.
Genius.
Why did I never think of that?
And that, it is a team that has beaten them twice in the last 18 months. So some of the strengths you talked about, that we've talked about, the defense, the turnovers, the fast breaks. Magdeburg are a team that is very safe on the ball. They have fantastically gifted backcourt players who play at an incredible pace, but their style of play is kind of individual, one-on-one, and pass it on. And in a sense, they're always close to each other. That's the way they play.
Yeah.
They always get these angles where the attacking players get close to each other and always get fouled. So that limits, all these turnovers are being limited because they're close to each other to make that pass. And they're usually in contact when they're making a dangerous pass, which means that it gets called as a foul, they restart, they do it again. So stylistically, I think that Magdeburg, there's a reason why Magdeburg have beaten Barcelona, and it's not just because Barcelona were off the ball on those games. They didn't care about the Super Globe. Not quite. I think it is a stylistic matchup that Barcelona struggle with, and actually looking at the four teams in this competition, Magdeburg is the outlier, because I would say that Barcelona, PSG, and Kielce all play a relatively similar style. Well, they all have Spanish coaches, which really brings that together. But that defense, that aggressive defense, we'll get on to, especially Kielce, have that. And that fast pace. Magdeburg are a different beast, and they're a stylistic matchup that Barcelona have to figure out. And I think that if we're going to find an Achilles heel, it's that.
And for example, the score from back in September, Super Globe, was 41-39, right? Which suggests like a quick style of play from both teams, because Magdeburg can do that as well. And they can at the same time take 2.5 minutes for an attack because they keep getting fouled over and over and over again. But that doesn't fluster them. That just flusters the opposition. And I think that one leads into the other there, because if they do that for 15 minutes at the beginning of the game, then Barca will start to take risks and then open up spaces elsewhere. But that's where Magdeburg's strengths, as we'll go into briefly, could really come to play. So, yes, it's a broad one, Alex, going for the opposition, as the Achilles heel. But yeah, we'll give it to you. So, anything else on Barca? I mean, I just want to say, like, from a couple of years ago, maybe the Achilles heel we could have talked about was a certain position in the court. For example, left wing or left back. But I think, the old shitting on Timothy Engasson is now not relevant anymore. He's just an absolute...
He's not even a random rocket.
He's just amazing.
Pure rocket.
Pure rocket.
Yeah.
He's pure rocket.
And so...
that's actually something I thought of earlier when I was reading an article on yourhandball.com, and they're talking about Kristaps maybe being the most underrated player at the Final Four. But I think if you're going to make a list of the most underrated players generally, I think Engasson would be in there as well, wouldn't it?
I think my opinion on him's changed big time in the last few years.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan now.
Yeah.
And just clutch. Like, he's the guy who, it's like a bit like Yerzhapkova will just come up with goals for you out of nowhere.
The last point on that, on Barcelona, is if they do have a positional weakness, it is the line, because they have Fabregas, who is the best line player in the world, but the backup to Fabregas is
Frade,
who, while he's developed a lot, he's still improving. He's just not at
He's
the
a random red card. Yeah. He's a random rocket / sheeposh in one go.
Yeah. And the thing is, the way why I'm saying this is because Fabregas at times does get into foul trouble. He gets 2 minutes. He's aggressive in defense. Link that to Magdeburg's style of play, where they're going to bait him. They're going to go 1-on-1 against that centre block continually. Christiansen's going to snap back his head a couple of times.
I'd be disappointed if he doesn't smack Gisley at least once in the head.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see a situation where Fabregas gets 2 minutes in the first 25 minutes, the first 20 minutes. It can happen. And then it's Luis Frade coming in to replace him, and that's the only chink of a weakness in the players for Barcelona that I can find.
So if you've just joined us now, we were trying to find a weakness in Barcelona's team. I think that probably sums it up nicely. Where Barcelona's weakest position is the position where the best player in the world in that position. Yeah, so that's
tough times.
That's how
tough times. And hi to Matthias, joining us all the way from Argentina, which is nice.
Amazing.
Anxious for tomorrow. I think that's in a positive way.
Who are you supporting, Matthias? Tell us.
I guess
also,
fan.
everyone in the chat, do get involved. Again, we're talking about storylines, strengths, and weaknesses for each team. So if you have any thoughts on the strengths, weaknesses, throw them into the chat. We'll discuss them. It's a difficult challenge to actually find those for these teams. So we could actually use your help.
Magdeburg. For me, the story was the fact that they've overcome an absolute injury nightmare to get to this, to get to Cologne on the first try, basically, as well, for this group of players. That has been a really impressive thing. And on the podcast, for people who listen later, you'll hear Christian O'Sullivan's take on that. But, I did ask him, was this really like a realistic thing for you a couple of months ago? And, with a bit of a smirk, he was like, well, we hope for it, but it wasn't looking very good. And it really wasn't looking very good for them at a certain point with the injuries they got. Alex, and you're tweeting, you basically told them their season was over. I think after that first leg against Płock, he was like, it's over. There's no, this is the end. What a turnaround.
No, my storyline is zombie Magdeburg.
Zombie Magdeburg.
They are like zombies that have arms falling off, have legs crumpled, and they still keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And also, not only with the injury-related issues that they've had, where they just keep moving forward. Also, it's their style of play. Yeah. They just smash into the defense. And no matter how many bruises and injuries they get, they just keep going. So zombie Magdeburg is my storyline.
Vess CK just asking, is Gisley playing tomorrow? Yes, apparently Gisley is fit and ready to go. I saw him walking around. Looks pretty much like his ankle.
Yeah, he played
a couple of games in Bundesliga.
Two games in Bundesliga. He scored 3 goals in one of them, so he's in pretty good shape.
We had Nicola Portner and Jensen in for the social media videos earlier, and when they were asked who do you think is going to be MVP for the weekend, they thought it was going to be Gisley. So he's definitely playing.
Yeah. How was it meeting Mike Jensen?
Quite a shy guy for a very big guy.
Yeah. But nothing. I meant
he's huge
as a twin.
As your twin.
As my twin. Oh yeah, forgot.
The story behind that is that there is
AI.
There's photographs that are taken throughout the competition, and then an AI attributes the people to the photographs, and usually it's quite good. But there's a wonderful photo of Brian from the back.
Actually, it was at the women's Final Four weekend when we were meeting. So completely out of context for Mike Jensen, he wouldn't be at the women's CHF Euro. Women's CHF Euro, and picture of the back of your head.
It was me, Chris, and Mike Jensen sitting together interviewing some players, according to the AI.
Oh, I should have told him that story. I forgot about that.
Oh, well.
Big Mike though could be big this weekend.
Mike. He's come into really good form, but what's that got to do with the story of the weekend?
Oh, the story of the weekend. Well, my story of the weekend was very similar to you guys, and I'm sad I said after your one because your one was had a way better title. The resolve of the old guard. I mean, I saw them there when they qualified, and they really had to rely on the guys who you kind of felt were on the way out at this time, or slowly kind of like the likes of Christian O'Sullivan, who think maybe in an attacking sense probably is a bit off the pace, maybe, but defensively offers still a huge amount, and in terms of leadership to Magdeburg, and.
Also, like Piotr Krapkowski, who was warming the bench for most of the season, comes in. He scores a goal in the quarterfinal and is playing in defence all of a sudden. Michael Damgaard, who has been in and out and in and out and in and out of this team over the years, started the season very much a bench warmer. He's come in and taken the reins. Gone ahead in the pecking order above Philip Faber now. And we spoke to Rasmus earlier.
Do you think he will start?
I think so.
You think he'll start?
Yeah. Oh, start. But what? Start.
Will
is that
he
important?
play more?
I think he'll play more. I think he'll play more. I think he'll be the number one.
I would say I disagree with that because I think Weber. I think we've given Weber some unfair criticism in the past. He's a very good player,
German.
but just potentially because he's German. But mostly it was with the German national team where he was the playmaker, and we pretty much never. He's not a playmaker, essentially. He is a left back, centre back combo player. But Germany used him in a way that tried to make forced into a classic playmaker role. But I think Weber brings good balance to the attack, because I think that also leads into my strength and potential Achilles heel. in both together. And that is that the Magdeburg backcourt is a team of random rockets. They are explosive, dynamic, incredible, but can be a little bit wild at times. And I think Damgaard is a great example of that, because he's a 7 from 9 or 1 from 6 type of guy. Smits has just been incredibly consistent, but his
Smits
random
is a
rocket,
14 from 15 or 10 from 15.
but he's like, but there's still a random range of 8 to 14 goals that he can get. I think.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. What a problem to have.
Christiansen is a steady ship. I think Christian O'Sullivan is a bit of a random rocket in attack these days. And Weber brings stability, but is also a random rocket in himself, where he could have a game of 1 from 4, or he just needs 4 from 5 is his perfect game. But at times he gets lost. And then, there's this imbalance. You have Smits, who's steady, but at times needs to give a 14-goal performance for Magdeburg to win. You can't rely on that. And then with the other players, there's a bit of random element to it. So that can be a benefit, because all of them can be incredible, but at the same time, they can all.
And let's be honest, they all need to be incredible for them to win this semi-final. Nothing short of that will do. So I'd much rather going into it as Magdeburg knowing that is possible, rather than knowing that our best might not be enough. Their best could well be enough, but they could also completely fall apart. I mean, my strength there was the brilliant one-on-one play. And we did go back to it a little bit on why that could be a downfall for Barca, and inspired players. Because when they are, and at the moment they are inspired, the way they have played the last couple of months in big games is incredible. And when you have an inspired Michael Damgaard, Christiansen just doing what he does, and Smits, the wingers, Lucas Mertens is probably one of the best left wingers in the world right now. 2 lads in the right wing, both very good. You have Saugstrup coming back into this team on the line alongside Lucas Meister, who is inspired at the moment. Lucas Meister.
Stop mentioning Lucas Meister in these podcasts.
Soon to be the Champions League Meister.
Is getting way too much airtime.
And Oscar Bergendahl. And then Mike Jensen is... Big Mike has inspired the last couple of months. He's come from being the clear number 2 to taking over in goal. So, they need to be absolutely on the ball and inspired. Everything has to work perfectly. But if it does, then... they have enough. Brian, your strength?
My strength is a very basic one, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh,
I apologise in advance. But the unknown factor of the Final Four, and them coming in as debutants to the Final Four, we've seen it a million times before, and I think, don't you think that this Magdeburg side suit that role more than anybody else that you've seen in the past, just with the characters they have in there, and like what you said earlier, the random rocketness-esque style of play that they have. I mean, really wonder what kind of tournament Philip Weber is going to have this weekend, because I've seen him in person playing a few times, and just what you said there as well. He can, when he's playing badly, he tries to fix the situation himself still, and he can go from not scoring 3 goals to not scoring 6 very quickly. And but when he's playing well, he can really be the guy to look for, and it can be very steady and backwards. So it's really a bit random in terms of his form, what kind of Philip Weber is going to get. He could be really important this weekend, I think, because we kind of think we know a little bit what we get with Kai Smits and some of the others, but Philip Weber will need to step up, I think.
Yeah, no, but it's a really good point about their position in this Final Four and their entry, because as opposed to the women's Final Four, where we've seen new teams struggle when they play in the Final Four for the first time, on the men's side, there's just been so many surprises.
Yeah.
Even like when we'll go into Kielce, but Kielce won it when they were the random team, the underdog, the scrappy
Flensburg, Hamburg,
Vardar,
Montpellier coming from Group CD.
You know, it happens time and time again, and I think Magdeburg fit that role really well in this Final Four.
Yeah. And Achilles, then yours is covered, the strength and the Achilles. Mm-hmm. How about you, Brian?
Just need to get my iPad open here. Achilles, I think, might come back to some of the players they might have to bring off the bench against a team like Barcelona that maybe they are lacking. While we talk about a ragtag bunch of guys here, there is, as you said, a lot relying on them doing it all again. Kai Smits doing it all again and playing at such an insane level, so many games in a row. And now the big lights are on at the Final Four. If Kai Smits is not firing...
Vladan Lipovina. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So squad depth to a certain extent, I think, is probably a...
Yeah, that's one I had as well. You know, are they going to be... Like, their end of bench is by far the worst across these 4 teams. And, you know, Marco Brajak, Lipovina, these types of guys don't make the squads of the other teams. And if they're forced into that is a struggle.
But they will all come in, and I think they'll be able to do a job. They won't let things fall apart. But you don't want to be relying on them for 20 minutes in the second half. They're going to come in and minute 15 to 20 in both halves and give lads a breather. For me, I think the short defense could be a little bit of a problem, because their defense is really impressive. I like how they play. They are very good at smothering teams and making the shooting possibilities difficult for them. But they're coming up against 3 teams who have got some serious firepower. They're going to come up against 2 of them. But Barca, let's start with Barca. We talked about Engesson, Mem. They're guys who are not going to be... They're not going to be too worried about who they're facing in defence. They're guys who can take a jump shot at 12 metres, just fire it past anyone. That worries me most about this team. They know they're going to concede goals, but and generally they can just outmatch teams in the way they control the game. But there is a little worry there for me that they won't be able to contain Barca in defence, and connected to that then is that the goalkeepers could be potentially exposed. I think they're both 2 solid goalkeepers. Mike Jensen, we spoke about already. Nicola Portner, he's been here. He's won the Champions League with Montpellier. Not as the key goalkeeper, but both solid keepers. Don't have the highest save percentage. They generally don't need it, but it could get to an extreme if they can't figure out a way to stop the big boys in Barca.
Yeah, probably fair to say they probably have the weakest goalkeeper pair of all the teams here. I mean, or am I jumping the gun a bit there?
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I would definitely say the pair, Portner and Jensen, are probably on that second level of handball goalkeeper. They don't have the top guy that each other team has between Wolf, even Green and...
they're a bit
I think
similar,
Green
but
and
at a
Palika
higher
are
level.
in between the highest level of Wolf and Perez de Vargas, and probably even Emil Nielsen up there. Then you have Palika and Gren, and then you have the 2 boys from Magdeburg.
Yeah, you feel like Palika and
So
Gren
basically what you said is correct, Brian.
Yeah.
It took a long way to get there, but Alex agrees.
Yeah.
And this is how we do a podcast.
And last point there on Magdeburg and the 2 weaknesses you kind of pointed out, or we've pointed out, in defensively and offensively, the two players that are really crucial to stop those weaknesses from happening are Saugstrup and Christiansen. Saugstrup sorts out the defense, Christiansen sorts out the attack. And both of those are coming from injuries.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see how they play. Saugstrup has played maybe 4 or 5 games now. Christiansen 2. Is that enough to be in full flow? Who knows? But it's a Final Four. They'll give everything. They're not going to hold anything back.
Yeah.
So now for the fun part of this, the prediction for the semi-final. Score.
This is the part where we get clipped up and put on Home of Handball Instagram.
Who's going to go directly to the camera this time? Chris, Magdeburg, O'Reilly. What is your prediction?
Chris, if you don't go for Magdeburg after years of talking about them, I'll be very disappointed. Yeah. You have to go for Magdeburg. I'm sorry. I don't want to put pressure on you, but
but you really
have
do.
to. Someone has to be wrong.
Magdeburg 36, Barca 34. What a game that'll be.
Alex.
Barca in extra time. 35-34.
Barca last throw of the game. 34-33.
Who scores it?
DKM.
DKM finally shuts me up. Shuts the doubters up.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised that wasn't your Achilles heel. It's like DKM, can he deliver?
Can he deliver at the highest level?
Well, Christian, it feels like for Magdeburg and the journey you've been on the last few years, and particularly this season, it's a huge milestone for the team. A couple of months ago, with all the injuries that you were going through, did you believe that this was a possibility at the end of the season?
It was our goal before the season, but of course the injury has made it much harder. And it's unbelievable now standing here, playing in the Final Four. It was a recent goal for us ever since I joined Magdeburg in 2016, and now we had the chance to play at a high level in the European League before and finally qualifying for the Champions League, and it was really important for us to take one of the top 2 spots in the group. That made it easier for us. We had a really tough 2 tough games against Wisla Plock, but I think that was key, just having not to play the first round, getting some rest in a tough program with Bundesliga and the Champions League.
It's been really impressive how you've managed to manage both competitions as well. The first time, of course, you played European League the last few years, but I think you could say yourself playing in the Champions League week in, week out, needing to get into that top 2 makes it basically as tough, if not maybe a bit tougher than the Champions League, and with all the injuries as well. How proud are you of this team for managing all of this, the expectations as well as the injuries, and playing at such a high level for so many months, week in, week out?
Yeah, really, really proud. I think we have taken steps in the right direction. We lost a lot more points this year than last year, but like you said, it is much harder to play in the Champions League. Usually we started playing international in October, November. Then you have 2.5 months to prepare for those games and having an easier schedule. And I think that was new for us this year, and it took a little time to get used to the rhythm. And probably also why we had a little more injuries this year, because it is much harder, and we have a lot of national players as well. And you want to be and compete at the highest level all the time. And I think we learned a lot through the season. Had our ups and downs, even though finishing at the number 2 spot in the group. During the group stage, losing some games we shouldn't lose, and then finding our form in the quarterfinals and this last part of the season, and just getting through the injuries.
That quarterfinal was fantastic. I was there for the second leg at home, also with the Płock fans above throwing their balloons and everything they could throw at the game. But for you personally, I mean, you started the season in maybe a different role than the last few seasons as well, really defensive minded for the team, but then you've had to fill in as well plays the playmaker role, which you've been known to do for club and country over the last few years. How was that kind of getting back into that role? Was there a little bit of uncertainty on your mind there, or did it feel quite natural to get back in there?
It felt natural, but it took some time getting back to the level I wanted to play at, because playing a different role and not getting the minutes in attack, it takes some time to play at this level, doing the right decisions at a high pace against the best players in the world. It took some getting used to, but I feel confident now before this weekend, getting some more prep time in attack as well. And but I must say, having Gisli back is a huge advantage for us. Right now, he's one of the best one-against-one players, and having him on our team makes us a lot harder to meet. So, of course, I want to play a lot in attack, but I'm really happy that he's back and contributing for us again.
Yeah, it seems the timing of almost everyone coming back has been perfect, better than you could almost plan. Of course, Omar is the major absence, but every team is missing some players pretty much. Is that also something you've talked about, how kind of not fortunate, but how good timing it is that the likes of Gisli's come back? Magnus is in full flow again.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference for us having 16 players now to go around and share the playing time, because it takes a toll on your body playing against the best players for 60 minutes, and we want to play at a high level for 60 minutes, and nobody can play 60 minutes at this pace, especially not against Barcelona. So we need to change a lot to keep ourselves fresh for the game. And yeah, we're looking forward to the opportunity, because what they have shown this year, scoring at that pace, that's unbelievable. So we look forward to the challenge.
Is it a nice thing having not so many days leading into this? I mean, you had the last Bundesliga game on Sunday. A lot of other teams have had maybe 2 weeks with no competitive action. A few days leading into this Barca game, but is that kind of nice in a way, keeping the rhythm?
I think we will see tomorrow, but I think so. You can train a little differently and more specialized against the other team when you have a little more time, but we're in match form. And I think that's absolutely a positive for us. And like I said, being here for the first time, hopefully it brings us so much energy that we can show that over the next 2 games, that we're just really looking forward to being here, because the 3 other teams that are here are almost here every year, and should be, because of how they play. No, I'm just really excited for the game tomorrow.
Yeah. And you've had a lot of experience in final weekends with the national team, also European League. You played here in the German Cup final weekend as well. This is obviously very different, but in terms of the routine for the team and discussions and stuff, is it pretty much just like another day at the office?
Yeah, it is, because doing something else now would not be us. We just have to believe in the style of play that we're playing, and that's going to be enough for us to bring back the gold to Magdeburg, because starting now to play or prepare as another team, that will feel different. And I think if we just play our game, we're going to be a hard team to beat.
It's going to be one hell of a game, Christian. Tack.
Yeah.
Luke Steins, back at the Final Four, but it feels like this is the first proper one with a big media presence. You'll have the full arena as well this weekend. How has the week been for the team leading up to this?
I think we had a good week and traveled yesterday to here, and feeling good, confident, and of course now we will get the full experience, at least me personally. So really happy for that, and we are going to give it all and try to beat Kielce in the semi-final to play the finals on Sunday.
It's such a fascinating game between PSG and Kielce over the last few years as well. There's been some incredible battles between you. Leading up into this one, the history between these 2 teams, does it kind of go out the window, or is that something you discuss a little bit?
Actually, we knew that we have played a lot of games against each other during the last several years, and we try to use every video we have to prepare this game for tomorrow. So of course, everything is still in mind, and we try to keep every information we can, and to prepare the game the best way possible, and to play our best game against them.
And how are these weekends for you coming into it? There's so much going on with the media events. You have meeting the fans later as well. For your personal preparation, does that impact that a little bit, or do you embrace it?
But actually, it's the first time I'm here, so with all this attention, and no, I don't know, and this is the first interview I'm doing, so I don't know exactly what is waiting me for the rest of the day, and even tomorrow in the arena. I don't know exactly how it will be, but of course, the last couple of years we also played some great games with PSG, and also with the national team at big events in the European Championship in Hungary, for example, against Hungary. So I'm getting used a little bit more and more during the last several years. But of course, this is a special one with the club team and really playing for a title. And only 2 games in 2 days. So we need to be top and full focus to be able to resist all attention and forget everything around and just play the game we have to play.
And from an outside perspective, with this team for PSG, the focus seems to have shifted a little bit. Some of the big name players in the last couple of years are gone, but it seems like as a team, you've become stronger than ever.
Yes, of course, we had a lot of changes during the last 2 years. A lot of players left the club and started to play for the clubs in big clubs in Europe, and of course we always had to manage and try to find a new player at that position, but I think we managed well. And of course in this season we also had some difficult games. We played in the championship, for example. We lost quite a lot of games, and but in Champions League we did an outstanding season till now, and I hope we can continue this streak and continue to win. And I hope the team, like you said, I hope the team will stay really close to each other in this kind of games, because we really need everybody, and we also know that we need everybody, and everybody knows his role. So I think this can also be an advantage to be really close as a team and fight together for the win.
The team PSG has been knocking on the door for so many years, so close on a couple of occasions. Do you feel that little bit of history weighing on the team as well? Is that something you talk about?
Yeah, of course, it's always special to be here and to play in Champions League with Paris, because the club, even in football and handball, never won the Champions League yet, and you feel that the pressure from the club is there, that everybody wants to win this title, and that the only thing is counting is almost the Champions League. So we are really focused to play good here, and it's only 2 games of 60 minutes, so we are going to give it all, both games, and then we will see. And it would be really cool to be in the team of Paris, what is winning the first Champions League title. So this is some extra motivation for everybody, I think.
And I see as this interview has gone on, your accent has turned more Dutch than French. So I want to ask you a little question about the Dutch side of things as well. The big weekend with you and Kai Smits playing here. 2 of the Netherlands' probably most impressive players in the last year. Have you been talking to each other a little bit about meeting here?
Yeah, we already have spoken to each other just before in the morning, and of course it's for Dutch handball it's also something unique to have 2 players at this event here. It has never happened before, and the Dutch handball is also really going the good way the last couple of years, and we hope I hope we are going to win it, and I will be the first one, but of course I hope they are winning their semi-final, and that we are winning our semi-final, and that we can meet each other in the final, and that at least some Dutch player is winning the Champions League for the first time. That would be also great for the Dutch handball, I think.
Okay, I'm going to throw you into the pit now and let you go into the rest of them. Thank you so much, Luke.
Thank you.
All right. 1 semi-final down. On to the next. Paris Saint-Germain against Barlenek Industria Kielce.
Had a good chat with Berta Servas.
Did
as
you?
I came into the hotel.
Oh,
he
nice.
always stays in the players' hotel.
How is
with
he? I haven't seen him yet.
He's in good form. It was a very quick chat because I was in a rush and he was holding court for 4 people as always. He always has a little posse where he's explaining and very expressive, but he seemed to be in good form.
And he was like, "Sorry, who are you again?"
He didn't even recognize me. He
Of
recognized me.
course.
Did he?
Yeah. Very good.
One Twitter meister to another, you know.
That's it.
I just want to bring in some comments here from the chat on Twitch. My name here, 16. I feel really confident about PSG. I feel like they're playing a really mature style of handball, and I think the depth is good. Do you feel the same, or do you think Kielce is going to run them over? Well, we're going to find the answer for that in the next 40 minutes.
No, it's a great
Great question.
We can do a few more comments,
Yeah.
but I will answer that question with my
Also,
strength.
CK Bruins loves the term or team of random rockets for Magdeburg, which I think is fair.
So we got the zombies, we got the random rockets. We need
need
something
a-
for PSG.
We need a tag for every team.
Well, Magdeburg are both the team of random rockets and the zombies.
Oh yeah, damn.
Crap, yeah.
Barca are just Barca.
Barca are just the juggernaut.
The juggernaut.
Yeah.
Right. So, do you want to start with PSG then?
Yes.
Let's do it. Their storyline. What is it coming into this weekend, Brian?
Their storyline, if I can remember, was just have to get my notes up here. Yeah, what did I pick again? PSG with goalkeepers. Can they win the Final Four?
As in they have
They have goalkeepers for the first time we've seen at the Final Four. I mean, they've had decent goalkeepers in the past, but we talked about.
Poor Van Saint-Gerard.
Yeah,
Van
I know, but we know.
The only players actually won it in the last 5 years instead of all the PSG players.
But also, I think two very reliable goalkeepers.
Yeah.
yes.
I think, Gerard and their past goalkeepers have had huge variance, and that's been the issue, especially in the Final Four. But they are two very reliable goalkeepers.
Like you put them just below that very top level, I'd say, but they flirt in and out of that, and we've seen that before. We've seen that with Pelik at the Euro.
Yeah, particularly at big international events,
Yeah.
Palika
Yeah.
is just. I mean, for me, I have a really big feeling that he's going to do something special this weekend.
Oh, it would be amazing to see. One of those kick saves would just
Kick save and he lands on the ball again. That's what we want. That's Palika for you.
dry hump someone.
Dry
on the
humps
ball.
an opposition player.
Oh, please. I want to see that again. Do it twice. There's no excuse.
Watch out, Alex Dujavayev. He's coming for you. That is the storyline for you. The keeper's coming in.
Yeah.
Is that enough
I
for
think
them?
it's a really, really big factor because, I mean, when we think back to Paris Saint-Germain teams of yesteryear, it was always an area which people always felt that's holding them back from winning a trophy. When you go onto Twitter and you talk about the Rasmus Boysmans of the world, he was always someone to point that out very quickly. And I think this is a big factor coming in, and probably the most likable PSG team of all time, which is a huge one.
Yeah.
I think this PSG team winning it this time, I think a lot more people will be happy for them with the characters than the like of Shipshack in there. Luke Steins, they're a very, very likable team. Yannick Green as well, lovely lads,
Yeah. No, but that leads into my storyline, which is Raul Gonzalez and Luke Steins, a match made in heaven. Because, again, Raul Gonzalez is an incredible coach. He is beautifully technical, and he has this player who just executes his game plan so perfectly. And again, I'll reference the quarterfinal against Kiel. I was just so impressed by PSG because they played like a team to the best extent I've ever seen them. And that stems from Luke Steins being given the keys and just told, but also this combination. It's like a partnership between the two of them. You have the coach and the on-court captain of the attack. And between the two of them, it's just turned into beautiful handball. And I think that also builds into this likability of the team because not only it's Luke Steins and everyone loves Luke Steins, but also their style of play is quite beautiful these days. And Chris is smiling because he's going to mention Petr Nenadic.
Speaking of likable players, now I'm just saying here that Mihai, of course, on the chat, a big Kiel fan, so also not happy with his team losing to PSG so comprehensively in the quarterfinal, but saying PSG and likable in the same sentence.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
but
can't.
my name here is 16.
Yeah.
The chemistry is there.
Yeah,
the chemistry is there.
We said most
Mihai,
likable compared to other teams.
Yeah,
in the past.
Mihai, you have to you look at the players there, right? So you have Kristapans, you have Matej, Luke Steins, You have like Toft
Shipshack.
Hansen on the line, Shipshack, the two goalkeepers, Yannick Grain in particular, Balaguer and Sole on the right wing. I mean, they are a bunch of really nice guys. Whether the whole concept of PSG, I mean, I don't think anyone's a big fan of that. But in terms of individual people there, I think it is a nice bunch of lads. And Groups are asking, what happened to Nenadic and Vesprem? Well, that, I guess we'll only know when either Momir Ilic leaves Vesprem or Nenadic retires from handball. So what'll come first?
Well, we're very tempted to ask Yahya Omar when we had him on our live show, but didn't want to throw him under the bus. So we'll leave that story to get out eventually.
Yes, it'll come out by itself. For me, star-studded sheen has gone for this team, but what has emerged from it is a real contender. And it feels like, really for the first time, because they're not, like the weight of expectation is maybe not there as much as before. Although, speaking to Luke Steins earlier, and people who listen to the podcast will have heard this already. People who haven't, because they're watching live, you have to listen to the podcast later. Complicated stuff. But Luke was saying, not just with the handball team, but with the football team as well, the whole PSG club, there's a lot of like history hanging on them because they haven't won a title yet. Nobody on the men's side has won a title yet in football or handball. So he feels like that is very much present in the team, but maybe the expectation that it has to happen now, particularly this year, is lessened in comparison to previous years, which is usually when things like this work out, when the expectation is a little bit less. So, for me, that's the story, that it's like, some of the big names have really left, but from it has emerged a solid group of players.
Yeah. And Luke Steins is a star.
I mean, he is.
We talk about it's not star-studded. Luke Steins is a star. He is my favorite for MVP in the whole tournament. I put him top of my list. Maybe we can bring up that MVP ranking at some stage towards the end of the podcast.
That's a big challenge for our team, who I think are also preparing for a tour of the arena at the moment with a truck. So, I think they've got their minds on other things.
We mentioned that. But Luke Steins is a star. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely.
He's a fantastic player. In terms of strengths, what specifically is PSG's strength?
I went for the fact, connected Luke Steins at the wheel, is a team that absolutely wastes no opportunities. So it's important that Steins is there because his 101 assists this season, you know what the next best is after that?
It's like 60-something.
Yeah, 65.
My God.
So he's in a completely different universe for them. Maybe the PSG statisticians over there are a bit kinder than other teams, which is generally what happens in the Champions League. But still, 101 assists, and they have the best shooting efficiency from open play of all four teams here. So they really do not waste their chances. As long as Luke Steins has the chance to create the opportunities, he's also a goal scorer himself, but as long as he's doing what he wants to do, then the players will get the job done. And that is what I really like about this team. Elohim Prandi pending. The news is that he will play.
Oh.
So the hand injuries on his left-hand side.
Really not trust Nenadic that much.
No, Prandi trained yesterday. It's his left hand that's fecked, so he's a right-hander. He's fine. They just strap it up. I saw him there with a bandage yesterday. And they're a team with very little fat in that regard in the attack. And I think that is going to be crucial in particularly the game against Kielce in the semi-final, where both teams are going to get a lot of opportunities based on how we've seen them play, and Kielce can be a little wasteful. PSG, usually not.
Brian?
I think my biggest strength was that right down the middle of the court there. So you with Steins and then Shipshack on the line. I think the two of them have just had really, really incredible season. You talk about all those assists from Steins. I think a lot of them probably went to the line position. So that duo there, I think, are incredible, and I think that's probably my big strength. That spine of the team there.
Yeah, I Shipjack as the strength, a more of a kind of wild card, because I think he is the best offensive line player in the competition, and he has grown from strength to strength in that role. And he's a giant guy that moves incredibly well, which is actually rare to see. I think Fabregas probably similar level, but Shipjack just has that extra height, extra reach, where the balls can just be thrown up in the air and he grabs them out. But he's also mobile, and the reason why that's a real strength is because every team in this competition plays a very offensive 6-0, 5-1 defense. If you have a line player that is able to move around, disrupt that, and is also strong enough to just push away at the defender. You know, the Kielce play with this style where they play this really aggressive 6-0. So the number 2 defenders and one of the number 3s step out to like 10, 11 meters at times to disrupt the other attack. And then it's Gembala left on the line defending someone, because he's a big dude who can just hold someone down. But with Shipjack, not only is he strong enough to actually break free out of Gembala's grasp, he'll also be smart enough to move into the right positions to take advantage of the spaces that are made. And then, as you said, Luke Steins is smart enough, quick enough to get him that ball.
It kind of feels that
Christovans.
And Prandi, like all of them are very clever players.
It kind of feels like, you know, when you used to play like Football Manager back in the day and used to kind of be able to max out certain positions. It kind of feels like I'm gonna make a very really small, the quickest centre back ever. Okay, I need to make up for that somewhere else. I'll just make a massive, really agile line player. And what I do with the right back position, I'll make it just another giant,
even bigger. But he'll have great passing.
And then we'll have someone coming off the bench who's just really gangly and just throw some balls in Peter Nadic.
And then Prandi is just like max the jumping.
Max jumping and
this
power.
Guy's just like
max power,
he can jump over players.
And then 2 solid goalkeepers just have everything solid at the back. It kind of like you're designing that team just to have maxed out in certain positions, and that's what this team feels like. And so great viewing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please don't clip that up.
No, I love that. So good. And we have Nina coming into the chat a little bit late, who forgot the Final Four was this weekend. But,
oh Lord.
Lord. Now,
good you're here, Nina.
Now we're here.
Always.
And also a nice thing, because Mihai's saying there that we're celebrating 1 year of friendship, because it was through the non-stop twitching of last year that some of our friends in the chat became friends off the chat. So
And
there you go.
that's pretty beautiful. I
Happy
have to say.
friendship anniversary to all those people. What else have we got on this team?
We got weaknesses. Or Achilles heels.
Now, I wrote this before I saw that Elohim Prandi looks like he's going to play. And the Achilles for me there was potential over-reliance on Peter Nenadic at 36 years of age and just being Peter Nenadic. Discuss.
I mean, he's going to be playing injured, isn't he? So, I mean, he's not...
Nenadic?
No,
Yeah,
sorry.
Prandi.
Prandi will be playing injured. I mean, how well he's going to be able to play with that hand is... from what I heard anyway, with sources close to the French players, said that he's just going to play and just going to put up with the pain. How well you can play at a Final Four like that, it's hard to say. So it could end up being a weakness for them, that they will be reliant on Peter Nenadic. And when you're relying on Peter Nenadic, that goes 2 ways. Either he's going to score 7 goals, or he's going to score 1 from 14 shots, or whatever it might be. So you really don't know what you're going to get with Peter Nenadic. So that is definitely a potential weakness.
Yeah, and I would say the defensive element is also a big difference between Prandi and Nenadic. And especially with the injury, Prandi may be able to play at relatively high level in attack, but you need that left hand to tackle players in defense. So I can imagine that he's not going to be as prevalent in the defense. And then you're left with Nenadic, who is not a defender.
No. And we talked about this a little bit. It's going to be... earlier this week, we talked about both teams in the semi-final are going to have to do a lot of juggling with their players, because not only do you have Nenadic, if he's on, he has to go on the left wing in defence. Steins is going to be stuck in the wing or has to come off in defence. Shipjack is not a defender. So that's potentially 3 players at a given time that have to either be hidden on the wing You can do that for one of them, and the other two have to come off. And that, again, against a team, like all teams are, at this level, can play incredibly fast, but both Kielce and PSG are going to have to figure out ways to juggle those players, and sacrifice some positions at a given time. And that I find a really interesting challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially, they do have two specialist defenders to come on in Toft Hansen and Karabatic.
Yeah.
Two very, very good defenders. But it might even impact their attacking play, their transition in attack, making these substitutions. So
that was your weakness there.
My weakness is that it's basically turnovers, because PSG are not a safe team. And you say Luke Steins has 101 assists. There was no stat for turnovers, because I wanted
the old assist to turnover ratio.
I wanted to get the assist to turnover ratio for Luke Steins to make this point right. But they only had team turnovers.
Okay.
But even in the quarterfinal against Kiel, where they actually won and played incredibly well, they had 18 turnovers across the two games. So an average of 9. That's teams average kind of 4 to 6. It really,
That's a lot.
five is like really where you see the turnovers across technical faults and turnovers. And PSG were able to win with that amount of turnovers in the quarterfinal, but they're susceptible to that. And when you come up against the top teams, Kielce and Barcelona, Magdeburg, they'll all punish you for these turnovers. So I think that's a real Achilles heel. Out of all the teams, this is the one where it really is an Achilles heel. They can, protect the ball, but it can easily happen that they produce quite a lot of turnovers.
Yeah. How about you, Brian?
I was the same left back position, the unknown parts of that.
Yeah.
That position there. If Prondy going to be able to play to his full extent, and if not, Peter Nadic, can you rely on him? That's my main weakness there.
It's nice that we've moved on from the weaknesses being either mental for PSG or the goalkeeper position. I'm really intrigued to see how that goalkeeper position is going to play out. Like, Yannick Gren, I think, has maybe looked a little bit of a favoured goalkeeper of the two.
He's had the higher goalkeeping percentage and more saves.
But Palika, in the last few years, he's just he's been special, and he knows how to do it here in the Final Four as well. He's done it with Kiel. I've a sneaky feeling that he's going to be the standout player for them if they win.
Good. Should we leave it there for PSG?
Yeah. A lot of fans wanting to move on to Kielce. They're done with PSG. We haven't even started. All right. So, Barlinek Industria Kielce at the Truck Scout 24 EHF Final 2023.
I hope we didn't all go for the same story here, but out for revenge.
Yeah.
That is the journalistic story going into this.
Big bad Barca. It was my
yeah, something similar. I said, emerging from financial uncertainty and out to claim the title they deserved last season.
Well, you got a full journalistic title there. That's nice.
Bit long for a headline, but
yeah. So my one with big bad Barca is because Barcelona just have their number at the moment. It's always very close, but they beat them twice in this year's Champions League. They beat them in the final last year, and it's close but not close in these games. It always ends up feeling Barcelona.
But they're playing PSG in the semi-final.
I know that, and that's part of they have this mental challenge against Barcelona. They're going to be preparing for Barcelona. They're going to be. That's their heads are going to be with this big bad monster of Barcelona who has stopped them continually over the last couple of years. And, of course they're going to be professional. Of course they're going to be prepared for PSG. But it's that's the storyline. Can they get over Barca? It's like not PSG. And that's the storyline.
Are you saying that is like that it's going to hold them back against PSG, or that they're already going to get past PSG? They're already there.
In terms of story, I don't think they're easily going to get past PSG. I don't necessarily think it's going to hold them back against PSG. It potentially can, but
As the weekend in
as the
total.
weekend in total for Kielce, it's that big shadow, big looming shadow from Catalonia that's going to be on their minds.
And yours was exactly, what was the headline?
My headline was just the what did I say again? Out for revenge. Very boring. I mean, you really thought of nice headlines. I should have kind of played on words a little bit more. But
No
rampant
alliteration
for
here.
revenge. There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, the rampant revenge machine. I mean, they'll obviously. I mean, the scenes last year after that game when they lost that was probably the most upset I've ever seen a team. It was. I mean, it was. That hangs with you. And I mean, whether that's going to be their main crux for motivation or whether it's going to. I mean, when things get testy, are they going to have deja vu, or are they going to push on from it? I mean, it's really hard to know. That all comes down to the character of certain players. You would like to think that with the Dushabayev trio in there, that they do have the character to learn from that and push on. But it is a huge question going into this weekend as well.
We've just been given some odds here from Nolsa, 88.
Very interesting. The pretty intense for favorite for Barcelona.
Yeah. So you get, if you put in €1, you get 144 back for Barca. 5-1 odds for Kielce. 7.5 to 1 for PSG. 14.
Are you gonna find the latest bookie?
I'm not allowed to vote. Not vote. I'm not allowed to bet. But bets. I'm not going to name the other betting companies are available. I'm not going to mention any.
Do not.
Yeah. Wow. 14-1. Anyway, go back to that at the end. All right. So they're the storylines. I think this whole kind of redemption aspect is a big part of it. Strength. For me, the all-around clutch. And we're seeing here 3 or 4 minutes left until the truck is getting ready. 3 or 4 minutes left of the show. Now, we were told until 6. We have 20 minutes, Clemens. We'll try and make it quick, though.
Well, we can
take a break during the truck.
But let's not dilly-dally then.
That's not dilly-dally.
That's strengths.
All right. So, strength. Clutch players all around. And I would trust all of the starting 7, or the players you expect at the 7, to produce some magic in the final minutes. Like literally anyone of that starting team in the final minute can come up with something really special.
And just my name here, 16, is in my camp saying that Sitchko is going to tear apart this Final Four
Best
because
left back in the world.
He may be currently the best left back in the world. That's my hot take.
There you go. Brian?
Yeah, I mean, the Dushabayev trio is a strength of mine, obviously, in terms of coach mentality. The two brothers just do or die. They have a point to prove this
It's
weekend.
really interesting that we're calling them a trio now, right? We, for years, Danny Dushabayev
was on the outside, yeah.
Was on the outside.
Not
He was
anymore.
almost a liability, but he's really proven himself
I
over
trust
the
him
last couple of years.
Especially to us at the World Championship.
At the World Championship, he was incredible.
Yeah.
And I think even in last year's Final Four, he was also really good. He just has the clutch gene.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree. So any other strengths you?
I felt like mine was more focused on talent Dushabayev because he is, I think, the best coach in the world. He makes meticulous plans. All of these coaches do. Yeah. They're all going to be really good. But the solutions that he can come up with are just so creative. So when he gets this challenge of Luke Steins, I think he can find something to shut him down. It's of all the coaches in the world, I think he'll find some sort of creative solution for that. And usually they work.
That's the Achilles for me, is the dealing with a mobile and speedy opposition, particularly Luke Steins. And we saw they struggled against Płotsk in every game they played, most recently in the Cup final, where they had lesser opposition in comparison to that, but it was the movement on and off the ball that really hurt them. And maybe they will have the solution by then. But that, combined with the question mark over Karolek,
Huge.
he is the 50-50 player at the moment, that whether he'll be fit or not. They said Olenicek will play in defence, so he'll be fit for defence. And the other question mark was Karacic. They said he'll be fit, but Karalek is still the 50-50. That's more of a problem, I think. It's a problem in attack mostly. They have Tornat there who can do it. That again goes back to then needing to swap a bunch of players
I think
around.
defence is the bigger impact, because I think Tornat is not far off Karalek in terms of offensive ability. And actually Tornat at times becomes their focal point. But also with Karalek out, Kielce have been using 7-on-6 very effectively with Karalek and Tornat. And that option might be shut off if Karalek doesn't play. They don't have another line player to the same level. And I agree with you about the mobile attack, especially Tomasz Gambala. In the World Championship, he really struggled against the speedy attackers. Again, maybe they have a solution for that, but but my weakness for Kielce is that they get into scraps. They really, and it's those games against Plock that I'm referencing here, but they do tend to start off with a beautiful game plan. Talent Dushabayev, everything is perfect. Then 40 minutes in, it just becomes a free-for-all. And they have the players. They have Alex Dushabayev for that. They have Danny Dushabayev, Karacic. They're all individual players who thrive in those moments. But they end up in these scraps. And against Plock, they lost that game, which was an absolute scrap. Yeah. They have a tendency to get in there. When you compare it to Barcelona don't get into scraps. Barcelona just dominate teams. No, they'll do their own thing. Maybe they start missing, but they'll continue doing their thing. Kielce, like a brawl.
Do you think it's a mentality thing that they get dragged into scraps? Like that they get frustrated? I mean, you see Talent Dushabayev on the coaching line as well, how frustrated he gets at times, and he starts taking it out on the players, and it's his coaching style, obviously. But you think that aids them getting into these kind of messy games, whereas maybe Barcelona don't.
Yeah, I think it actually does come like top down there. I think it does.
He'd be the first one out there throwing punches if he could.
Exactly. And I think it can be a strength at times. It can drive a team, but it can also just reduce it to a level below their best ability.
I think that'll come into play in the final. More on that in a moment.
Prediction.
Yeah. Are your Achilles heel for Kielce, Brian?
Achilles heel? This is a terrible Achilles heel to have, but I've Barca in crunch time. It's nightmarish. Also for me, I didn't even play in that game, but I also get nightmares of that crunch time Barcelona. Yeah. I mean, they must be dreaming of it all year. So that's their weirdest kind of Achilles heel. I feel like, as Alex said, they have their number completely, and they don't want that to happen.
Is that so? I feel like you've already made your prediction here. For
I have
the final.
A bit, yeah. I have a bit.
Okay. Yeah. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Let's go for the predictions then before we go. Your order 1 to 4 and MVP.
Oh, it's going to be a Barca Kielce final again. And it's going to be Barcelona who win it again, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and MVP?
MVP, DKM.
That's exactly what Rasmus Boysen said. Barca to win, DKM, MVP.
Also, I'd like to differentiate between a Final Four MVP and the full MVP. Those can be different.
We don't have time for this.
We do not have time for it.
We've only 4 minutes left.
I will cover this at a later stage of the
Final
this
Four
show.
MVP.
I'm Team PSG. I'm convinced. 32-30 in the semi-final against Kielce, and a victory against Barca. In the high 20s, let's say 28-27.
Oi. So, and your MVP?
Steins.
Big Steins. I think Kielce will beat PSG in the semi-final. And then
You've already said Magdeburg.
Then they'll lose to Magdeburg in the final. And Kai Smits with
Into the camera.
Into the camera, insert clip,
Can we
come
get
on.
a camera?
Magdeburg.
Is there a camera
we get a-
operator in the building?
Get a close up on Chris here. There we go.
Magdeburg to win it. Kai Smits with 23 goals. MVP.
Clip it up.
There you go. All right. My name here saying Barca PSG final. Prandi to get the MVP.
It's interesting. None of us have Kielce winning it.
Adrian, I think you're coming back in now, so we can transition you in and get your MVP and winner.
I don't think any player will score 23 goals, like you said,
That's
Chris. In a single game, it's quite difficult.
No, for the weekend, for the whole weekend. Yours is?
Barca to win it. 37-35 in the final with Kielce.
Okay.
After coming back from 4 goals. And the MVP will be Aleix Gomez.
I like that one as well. Yeah, that's a good one. All right.
And he will be the top scorer, the all-time top scorer.
Because McKady78 says Kielce wins with Marito or Sitchko MVP. Everyone's on my
Kielce.
Sitchko.
There you go.
Everyone's on my
Kielce.
Sitchko bandwagon.
There you
It's
go.
happening. But I just want to mention Marito, absolute legend of a player. He's.
yeah.
If
And
only
he's very-
Alex Gomez wasn't better, we'd be talking about him so much more.
Well,
He's very young. He's still very young.
we're back on tomorrow for a post-match podcast, so we may be talking about Marito then. That's it from the Uninformed Handball Hour bit. And thank you all for watching or listening if you're listening afterwards.